This is Dr. Chumney, and in this presentation I'm going to talk about the general process of selecting a dissertation topic. First, let's talk about what might be one of the worst ways to identify a dissertation topic. Graduate students, particularly those who have careers and interests before going through the dissertation process, are often tempted to approach the dissertation in a manner that puts the cart before the horse, so to speak, or in research terms, they put the research questions before the literature. A common mistake students make is deciding what research questions they want to answer before they even start the dissertation process. This is a very attractive approach and a really easy trap to get into. Why? Because it gets us excited about the dissertation process. It is easier to get excited about specific questions that we see as relevant in our everyday lives than it is to get excited about a general topic without focusing on some specific question. The problem with starting with a specific question you want to investigate is that those questions are typically driven by personal experiences instead of being informed by or even shaped by theory or literature or previous research-based works. When we start with a specific question, we tend to review only the portion of the literature that supports our expectations, and we limit our theoretical and methodological approaches to those that we feel are the easiest or most immediate, instead of taking the time to understand all the options and the consequences of the choices that we make. So if starting with the research question is the wrong way to develop a dissertation idea, then what is the correct way? The best way is to first identify a broad area of research. For example, you might be interested in the broad topic of parental involvement in schools, or even the broader topic of school relationships within the community. When you select a broad area of interest, there are a couple things to think about: faculty support and personal interest. It is always, I cannot stress this enough, always best to work on a dissertation for which there is a faculty member who has a shared interest. If no one on your committee knows anything about the topic you're investigating, you will be on your own for the literature review and the bulk of the work of the dissertation. Even more important is that you will struggle to get anyone to buy into your project, even if they do agree to chair something that's outside their area of expertise. This is problematic for students because if your committee, and especially your committee chair, is not interested in the work you're doing, they're less likely to provide quality feedback in a timely manner. The best quality dissertations and the smoothest and best dissertation experiences come from having a topic that's at least somewhat related to the research interests of the members of the dissertation committee and the dissertation chair in particular. The other important factor to think about is your own personal interest. Keep in mind that the dissertation is something that is going to consume more of your time than you can imagine. You want to be sincerely interested in the topic so that you don't dread working on it or you'll never finish. At the same time, however, it is best to avoid a topic about which you have very strong opinions or beliefs, any sort of emotional connection, or an investment in a specific outcome. Being too tied to a topic can be problematic, both because it makes it hard to be objective and because it can take a toll emotionally to spend so much time thinking about something that is an emotionally charged topic for you as an individual. The second step is to review as much of the available literature as you can find that is relevant to the broad area of interest. As you read, you'll identify topics and concepts within that broad area that are more interesting to you than others. As you continue to search for and review the literature, your scope will slowly but surely narrow to favor the concepts that you find the most interesting. Because these topics are identified out of the broader literature base, the chances are very good that you'll understand how they fit into the bigger picture of the area of interest. As you review the literature, it is important to think critically about it. Your goal for this part of the process is to really understand the literature on both the broad area of interest and the specific concepts or topics you identify as being ones you might like to focus on for your dissertation project. As you read through the literature, you want to focus on learning what has been done, what methods have and have not worked, what others have found, what is missing from the literature, and what are the logical next steps to follow to continue the line of research that has been started so that your research contributes to the field. This is all part of the process of identifying gaps in the research literature, those special topics that offer new and interesting potential because they have been studied only to a limited extent, if at all, but they're also grounded in theory and prior research. Once you have identified the specific gap in the field or the direction you want your dissertation to take, the need for researching that particular area forms the basis for the research problem. That is, the problem that you will attempt to solve or at least address through your dissertation project. Once you have a clear idea of what problem you're going to address, you'll be ready to start identifying the specific questions you want to ask. The reason it's important to go through the literature and identify a research problem first is that it helps to make sure there's actually a need for your research questions and that your research questions fit logically within the field so that your project can contribute in a meaningful way to the continued development of the field you're interested in. Once the research questions have been established, you must determine which theoretical perspective fits your study best. The theoretical perspective you select should be one that makes sense for the content area or broad area of research you've selected, and also one that is consistent with your problem statement and the overall goals that you have for your study. The final step is to decide what methods you'll use to attempt to answer your research questions. How is it that you're going to collect data with the hope of finding answers and contributing to the field? Sometimes when students think about this process, they ask how the method is related to choosing a topic, and the answer is that every piece of this dissertation pyramid is influenced by the other pieces. It would be nice, it would be great, if the process of identifying a topic and developing a proposal were a linear process, but in reality that's almost never the case. Most of the time you're going to find that you have to move down a level or two in the pyramid each time you take a step upward. As you identify a topic and start to develop your dissertation, you're likely to find that this is very much an iterative process. Until you've really made a decision about all of these different elements and you're convinced that those decisions all fit together neatly, your topic of interest is still open to change and interpretation. Ultimately, the process of topic selection is not complete until decisions are made about all of these steps in the process, and those decisions yield pieces of a study that fit together and complement each other. To wrap up this presentation, I would like to share just a few pieces of friendly advice to help you as you begin your dissertation journey. First, keep in mind that the dissertation process is an iterative one. You should not reasonably expect to move through the project or the process in a linear fashion. Sometimes you'll have to go back and change your mind about decisions you've already made, and sometimes you might have to rethink big pieces of your study before it all fits together neatly. This is normal. This also applies to writing. Prepare to write draft after draft after draft. Prepare yourself mentally so that you're ready for and welcoming toward the feedback your committee will offer. If you ever receive feedback you disagree with, do not just ignore it. Instead, ask questions. Find out why that feedback was given. Is it that you haven't considered a different perspective? Could it be that your reader didn't fully understand what you wrote as what you meant to write? And then, to what extent do you have to incorporate the feedback? Is it a make it or break it type of situation? If you don't incorporate the feedback, will you fail your dissertation defense or your proposal defense? Most of the time, your committee members are going to be reasonable people. So if they provide feedback with which you disagree, then have that conversation with them and find out if this is a change you have to make even though you disagree with it. Oftentimes, providing a logical, well thought out argument for why you don't accept a piece of feedback is all you need. Other times, that's not the case and you just have to incorporate the feedback that you're given. As you develop your dissertation documents, do not create a new file for each section or chapter. Everything in your dissertation should flow from and relate logically to everything else. Your readers know this, and now you know this. Because everything relates to everything else, keep all the elements together in a single document so that your readers can refer to other sections of paper as needed. Remember to choose a topic that is interesting to you and even one you can be passionate about, but not one that is an emotional investment. The more emotions and biases you can take out of the dissertation process, the better your experience will be and the better your project will be. Use your committee to whatever extent they will let you use them. They have all been through the dissertation process before, and even if they're not an expert in your content area, they can help to make your project better. Finally, do not pick a dissertation topic with hopes of solving a big problem. Pick something that is big enough to justify the earning of a doctoral level degree, but be realistic and focus on a reasonable portion or piece of the problem instead of trying to tackle all of it in one study.